the only hard part with it, and people will never be able to understand this concept of you're not hating on the player, you're not hating on the dude.
It's hard to separate it.
He's a Jim Thorpe Award winner.
People struggle with it.
He stole it from Travis Hunter, right? Great football player. It does not. I just can't find a world in which it makes sense. So somebody wanted to make sense out of drafting and look, when I said to Mike Sanford, well, he's got to take Riley Moss's spot, right? Because that's the only thing that makes sense to me. And he's like, no, this dude's a nickel. Okay, in my opinion, that makes it even worse because I could justify the value of a starting corner, a starting nickel. That just gets worse and worse and worse for me. I don't get it, man. There was one of 4 positions you could have taken. You could have made sense out of running back, tight end, wide receiver, defensive tackle. This is not a world that makes sense to me.
Okay. Well, here we are. And we're in this world.
So, real fast.
Yes, Scott.
Again, I reiterate why I'm never so fired up as you two for mock drafts.
No fun.
For this reason right here. 2, I've been listening the last 2 weeks. Oh, they're going to be great. They're going to kill the draft. And now all of a sudden I hear this hate from you two after just weeks of
months
heaping praise.
Months.
I wouldn't have cared, and I don't care that it's Jahdae. Which makes me think I had a buddy of mine met a guy the other day named Jathan.
Mm-hmm.
And, not Jason or Nathan, but Jathan.
Yeah, stupid name.
And so he said, I always say the name a couple times. I remember I said, hey, Jathan, how you doing? Jathan, it's nice to meet you. Jathan, that's an interesting name. And the guy he kind of looked at my buddy and looked at him and said, are you serious?
I don't have a rim shot, so that's the best I could do.
Anyway,
if I had a rim shot, I would have hit it. I could see it coming a mile down the road. But the best I can do is.
I think it's explain it to Tyler during the timeout. I have no problem with the pick. It's at your 20th. You probably got the best guy left on the board, athletically and everything else. I do think the NFL has changed and everybody is aerial attacks. And I think nowadays NFL defenses start 3 corners, so you've got your third starting corner. And if Riley Moss is injured, can go out, you got a guy that's more qualified that can go out and play outside if he needs to. What was the guy you mentioned a while ago that played in the slot when they won the Super Bowl 15?
Bradley Roby.
Bradley Roby.
Yeah.
And he filled in, when guys were hurt. Harris was hurt for a little bit. He
Sure.
slid back over to the main thing. So you've added depth, quality depth. We saw when Moss got hurt last year, there was no quality depth. So maybe you've added a little quality depth there, and a guy that's probably – it'd be interesting to see. Sanford just said that he thinks the team's probably starting nickel 80% of the time.
Okay. Hey, man, listen, if they're closer to winning the Super Bowl, like Tyler pointed out, awesome.
Right.
If that's the case, great.
Your argument should be, and this is what I've said about drafts for a million years. All of us, when we've done draft shows, and I've done 1,000 draft shows, you want sexy. And getting a guy that was never on your board, that you never even thought about, from a position you weren't sure that you needed in yourself. I got to believe internally, everybody at Dove Valley thought they needed one internally. It doesn't become sexy.
Can I tell you?
Everybody who does draft shows wants sexy.
Can I tell you this,
Bo Nix, whether we liked him or not last year, DMac, and we saw your orgasm, was a sexy pick.
Well, it was everything.
Sexy.
It was a position of need. It was a sexy pick. It was well overdue. Should have happened a long time ago. It was everything.
I don't know what would have been overly sexy about anybody that would have taken, though, this year. This year. So people ask, who would you have taken? What would you have done? Well, there's Omarion Hampton, there's Luther Burden, there's Matthew Golden.
Yeah.
Those are all players that made sense to me. That Luther Burden's still on the board. Matthew Golden got selected after. Omarion Hampton got selected after. If you look at the rest of the first round, there really aren't any other names that I really would have considered, but right. I certainly would have considered those 3 names. I don't even know that any of those 3 names would have been sexy. Matthew Golden, you probably could have made that one sexy because that's a fast son of a gun. That's a specially unique speed. Scott started off the segment by talking about, this league is going vertical. Yeah, this league is an aerial attack. You hear how Patrick Mahomes is talking. Okay, cool. Cool. We've actually already got a secondary that can handle that. We do. What we don't have is an aerial attack on the other side of the ball.
Right.
What we don't have is a difference maker at the wide receiver position. We've got a Marvin Mims who's pretty good. We've got a Cortland Sutton who's really good. But we don't have a difference maker. So the whole league is going to that. We've got a secondary that can already handle it, and we don't have any of that on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, now we'll see what goes on 2-3 and everything else.
And so now you have to, for the rest, theoretically, I would compare the impact of Jahdae Barron to Matthew Golden, Omarion Hampton, who it turns out the Broncos weren't that into, but still. And I would make the argument they could have been aggressive and moved up to get Tyler Warren, who we're told today, well, they weren't that into either. And they were into Colson Loveland.
Yeah.
So if the Bears went Warren and Loveland was bumping around their 13, that might have got a little bit more interesting, as it turns out. But hey, listen, it's the way it goes. It's life in the fast lane. You can compare these guys.
Think they tried to get up to get Colston Loveland?
No,
well, he went
at 13 maybe, not at 10.
Yeah, Colston went so much higher than anybody predicted, and he did beat Tyler Warren, and which felt like vindication for me, of course. But it was the Bears, so we'll see what ends up happening out of it. But it is interesting to hear that the Broncos ran on Colston Loveland also.
You were right about that. Yep, you had the same feeling, you and the Broncos. Now, that's not to say there aren't some talented guys still around in the second round. The question is where the Broncos are they going to have to do some deals to move up to get whoever they want?
So everybody keeps talking about Travion Henderson.
Yeah.
Well, you better fire. You want Travion Henderson, you can't sit around.
Right.
You're not getting him in the bottom half of the second round.
So we got to see where guys like that go. And if the Broncos take another defensive player, because all the offensive guys that they didn't have at 20, but they had between 20 and their pick in the second round, if they all go and you end up taking like a defensive tackle, it's another swing and a miss, probably, at what you were doing by just going auto draft best player available.
I trust this team. I believe in
there's so much of that, Scott. There is so much of that going on social media right now. It's unbelievable. You would think that George Payton walks on water.
Well, you were saying that before the draft.
I didn't think they could screw it up, and they did. I really didn't. And again, here is where people will confuse the pick with the player. And they'll think like, we hate Jahdae Barron, which we do not. Seems like a great guy. Everything about him seemed. He had like 5,000 people at his draft party in Austin. He seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah, I listened to that call, and you asked them to put you on speaker.
Yeah.
Well, why did you say that, and then what did you tell to that draft room in Denver?
Man, I just wanted to thank everybody. Like, it's crazy, like, emotion, like, all the way, like, tears that hadn't hit me yet. Mm-hmm. I've been taking pictures of everybody and stuff. I really ain't even got a chance to just sit down and just, like wow. Yeah. But I wanted to tell everybody thank you, man. They changed my mom's life, like, completely. They just changed my mom's life. That one call right there changed my mom's life forever.
It goes like that, and we're happy for him. And we'll air his press conference in 2 hours at 2:30 right here on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. All right.
So you want to defend the pick? It's easy. It's easy to defend it if you want to, okay? You got a top 10 talent. Jeff Legwell told us he's a top 10 talent. Jeff was not alone. There was plenty of people out there that had him as a top 10 talent.
He was the most projected mock-wise was 13 to the Dolphins. That was his most common landing spot. So yes.
So easy defense, man. Yeah, look at where you got this guy in the draft. You got a top 10 talent. I asked Jeff Legwell last night. I said, okay, but why did the Broncos need him? Why did they need him? Right? And his answer to that, it would make sense. Well, they got the value. They got the best value on the board. That makes sense. I got it, right? But what he didn't answer was why the Broncos needed it. The Broncos, in theory, did not need it. And where I will respectfully disagree with Mike, and I'm not doubting his sources who's telling him he's better as an inside guy, as a nickel. If you draft a first-round corner, he better be to replace Riley Moss. And I don't mean that because I don't like Riley Moss, but it's just as simple as that. You draft a first-round corner, that means he should be like a Pat Surtain. He should be that good.
Well, here is what George Payton said was their thinking on Barron.
We weren't expecting him to be there. You know, he was pretty high up on our board. You know, what we liked about him is just, I mean, he's a playmaker. He's a football player. He's a fun watch. I mean, Sean, you know, I did him during the season, then after the season, and Sean and I watched him last week. I mean, we just couldn't stop watching him. Just the instincts, the anticipation.
So that's the truth. They looked at him. They liked him. They valued him in terms of what his value was. They had a Zoom call with him, and that was it. There wasn't an in-person visit. There wasn't over scouting. It was just kind of the basic amount of work. We're never going to get this guy. There wasn't a plan, Tyler, Scott. There wasn't a plan here. It literally was like, we couldn't get up. We couldn't go down. We're here. Who's the best player? That's it. It's as simple as that. And hopefully it works out. But so that to me is a bit of an organizational swing and a miss.
What I can't get beyond is this best player available thing. Everybody, Tyler, best player available. You got top 10 talent. Okay, fine. I guess I fundamentally have a very strong difference opinion of how you go about the first and second round in the NFL draft. Best player available at a position of need. That's it.
I feel you.
At a position of need. And if you want to go through the entire first round, I bet you we're going to find about 31 teams that drafted the best player available at a position of need. Not just the best player available, unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs. You are the Philadelphia Eagles. You are the Bills.
Right.
You're sitting at 31, 32,
Right,
30,
right.
29, somewhere in that ballpark, and you've got a championship level team. So,
Right.
okay, the other defense would be, if you really want to defend the pick, we're ready to go win a Super Bowl. Okay,
There
cool.
you go.
Cool.
There you go.
Then we've officially reached the point where the Denver Broncos don't have holes to fill, and we're just drafting the best players that are out there.
Raise the bar. I think that's fair. I think that's
Well,
great
you do
analysis.
need athletes, though, don't you? You do need athletes, and when this team was going on an 8-year hole of not making the postseason at all, you can admit that there wasn't a lot of athletic dudes on that team either.
Sure. But the biggest problem is you didn't have a quarterback and you didn't have a coach and a quarterback combination in conjunction with everything else. I mean, don't forget how lousy the Broncos were with Pat Surtain until they got Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Is that lost on anybody? And I think Pat Surtain's a pretty damn good athlete. Defensive player of the year, but doesn't matter if you don't have the quarterback. Tyler's right about this. This is a luxury pick that typically teams like Xavier Worthy to the Chiefs last year. That's a luxury pick, bro. And it turned out okay for him, right? It was a good, solid player for him. But nobody was taking a run at him earlier on because there were, questionable things. This was a luxury pick by the Broncos.
I just freaking hate that DMac and I are agreeing on everything, and that is kind of making me sick right now.
Well, but I want to know where you guys stand on it's a luxury pick, so is that good or bad?
Well, it's good if they're going to the Super Bowl this year. Like, if they go to the Super Bowl this year, hey, pie's in our face because we didn't think they were that good. So way to go.
But hold on now. If they win a first-round game, which you've said that's what you expect this year,
yeah,
they win a first-round playoff game and get to the second round, do you think this kid's going to be a big part of that?
Yes, I do, actually. Yes. But I think that, like Tyler said, I think they had deeper needs. And we know now that they were thinking about moving up and wanted to move back and couldn't get it done. Mm-hmm. And we know now they didn't really like Omarion Hampton. He just went 2 picks later. For whatever reason, they weren't jazzed about Matthew Golden, I guess. That's pretty obvious, too.
So you're adding, for everybody out there who's talking about how our secondary fell apart at the end of the year. I got it. Riley Moss was hurt. I got it. We could have found depth for Riley Moss a little bit later. We could have found an upgrade to our number 2 corner, our outside corner. We could have found that. For everybody out there saying our secondary was just flat out exposed, not as good as you think. Okay? According to Next Gen Stats, Jahdae Barron is now teaming up with Patrick Surtain and a Denver Broncos secondary that allowed the second lowest success rate against the pass the entire season. That's how good the secondary already was. We're balling. We're not good. We're balling.
It was a luxury pick.